Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be sharing with you a requested video from my group on how to cut this asymmetric bustier dress with a structured sleeve. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button. Let's dive right into today's video. So first, to start, here is my pattern paper, and I've gone ahead to mark out all my basic measurements, which includes my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waistline. So next, I will mark my shoulder divided by 2, and I will come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope. After I'm done marking that, I'll place my ruler and I'll connect all the way to the upper part. After I'm done connecting, you want to find your chest line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Now you're going to draw out a line at that point. My chest line or armhole is 7 inches. Now whatever you have on the shoulder, which is your armhole divided by 2, you're going to mark it at that point, and you're going to draw a straight line connecting to the shoulder. You're going to go ahead to divide this into 2 and mark. From that point, you come out by ½ inch. Now you connect from the upper part of the shoulder to the ½ inch, and at the lower part, go ahead to mark your bust circumference divided by 4, which will also serve as a guide to connect your armhole. So I'll just go ahead and connect this all the way down and use my marker to outline this. So after I'm done outlining this, I'll go ahead and mark my basic neckline of 3 by 3 inches. I'll go ahead to mark that out and the armhole of my dress. So next, I want to go ahead and mark your that, and I'll start by marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2, which I'll go ahead to draw a straight line and connect. Now I'll be marking 1 inch on both sides. For a plus size or someone that is a big busty, go ahead to use 1.5 inches. After I'm done marking this, I'll go ahead to use my ruler to connect. So the total length of my dress or my blouse is 24 inches, which is 7 inches after my waistline. So after this point, I'll connect to the bust, that is from the bust to the under bust. So after I'm done connecting, I'll just go ahead to use my marker to outline this. So the next step you want to take from here now is to go ahead to decide where you want your bustier to start. So I want my 1.5 inches after my chest line, and after marking that, I'll mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I'll go ahead to connect. Mark 1 inch on both sides. Go ahead to connect it back to the bust, and this is what I have, and I'll use my marker to outline this to make it more visible. The next step is to go ahead and insert my measurement. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. That 2 inches that I have there, I'll replace it and add ½ inch for the sewing allowance. So this dress doesn't really need much sewing allowance. I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4. Measure the dart intake, replace, and I'll add my sewing allowance here. I want to snatch my waist. I'll take out 2 inches from that point. So my waist is 28 minus 2. I have 26. That 26, I'll divide it by 4 and I will mark. Then go ahead to measure the dart intake, replace, and add my sewing allowance. I placed my tape just to make sure that the length of my top is 24. So I marked my hip circumference divided by 4 there. Measure this dart intake and you replace it and add ½ inch for your sewing allowance. So now I'll go ahead and place my ruler, and I will connect this all the way from the upper part to the under bust to the waist and down to the lower part of my dress, and I'll cut this out. After cutting this pattern out, I'll mark my bust dart. So to get the bust dart is the difference between your shoulder to waist in front and your shoulder to waist at the back. Mine is 1.5. My shoulder to waist in front is 17 inches. My shoulder to waist at the back is 15.5. So now I'll just go ahead to blend this up, and I will cut this out. So after I'm done cutting this out, the next step is just to go ahead to mark it out and shed it. So I cut that part out because if you fold it up, I had an excess there. So I'll connect from this point all the way to the upper part and then connect to the armhole. It is a sweetheart neckline, but it's not so deep, and repeat the same process at the other side. So after I'm done cutting this is what I have. And the next step you want to take is to mark out the asymmetric hemline. So I came down by 3.5 inches here, and I'll go in at least by 2 inches or 3 inches by the side, so that by the time you shape out the side, you have this curve effect. So now I'll blend in my dart, and I'll be taking it all the way from here to the other side, and then I'll go ahead to blend here in also, and I will extend it to the other side of my pattern. So if you notice, I went up a bit at that side because my pattern paper is about 24.5 inches. It is not 24 on the dot. So and my blouse length is 24. So on one side of my waistline I added 3.5 inches from this waistline, and the other side I added 7 inches. I'll go ahead and label it as center front, side front, and yoke. After that, I'll just go ahead and cut out my pattern. So if you have any question regarding this tutorial, please don't forget to leave your question at the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up, and if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button. On more sewing tutorial, you can follow me on my other YouTube channel at Marky's Closet. So remember also to blend in your dart. So after that, we'll move over to the back pattern. I've gone ahead to mark out all the basic measurements just like we did in front. The only difference is that my shoulder to waist at the back is 15.5 inches, and after that I marked 7 inches just like we marked 7 inches after the waistline. And for my neckline, I used 3 by 1.5 inches. So I'll go ahead to label bust, waist, and blouse length or top length. So next, you want to go ahead to mark your dart. I'll start by marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2, which is 3.5 divided by 2, and I'll go ahead to rule a straight line. After I'm done marking that, I'll go in by a basic dart of 1/2 inch on both sides, come down by 1 inch from the bust line, and I'll connect. Also go ahead to reconnect this at the lower part of my pattern this way, and I'm going to draw out. So after I'm done marking this out, I'll go ahead to outline my pattern. Go ahead to mark your bust circumference and add your sewing allowance. Mark your waist circumference you used for the front. Then go ahead to measure the dart intake, replace, and add your sewing allowance. Mark your hip circumference divided by 4 and mark your sewing allowance. So remember, for this pattern we are just adding 1/2 inch for the sewing allowance. So if you also want to use more than that, go ahead, but because of the structured effect underneath this dress, it's best to just use 1/2 inch for your sewing allowance to turn up your dress. So this dress has an invisible boning either sewn on the lining of the dress or on the stitching allowance of the dress. So now I want to go ahead to blend in my dart. I'll be cutting out my back pattern as one piece. So I also forgot to say that at the front part we have some designs there that was actually made with rhinestones. So the dress was actually beaded. So to get that design, you're going to do a beading by the side, creating like a semicircle or a half moon. So I'll come in by 4 or 5 inches from here, and I'll come in by 3 inches. So I came in by 5 inches on top, came in by 3 here. So I'll go ahead to connect from the upper part where I have that mark all the way to the lower part. So if you notice, the back is very open, but mine is not that open. If you want yours to be, go ahead to go in more, but I think this is okay. And also remember, you're going to create a modesty panel to cover the back of the dress so that it won't be that visible. So on one side of this dress is high and the other part is low, so I'll be using this pattern now to cut the both. So I went down by 0.3 here to get rid of any excess at this part, and also at the yoke I'll mark 0.3 inches. So from here I came in by 1 inch, and I will be coming down by 1 inch or 1.5 here for the yoke also, and I will connect. So you're going to use the whatever you have here. You can double it like 2 to 3 or 4 times depending on how open the back is. So here I'll go up by 3.5 inches. Why I'm going up by this 3.5 inches, remember, on one side of the dress is low and the other side is high. So from that 3.5 I'll connect it to the other side, which is about 7 inches. And I'm using this pattern to cut out 2 of my back pattern. So after cutting this out, what you're going to do is you're going to reduce it to be about 3.5 inches at the other end. So I'll go ahead to cut this out. So if you have any question, please go ahead to leave it at the comment section. So to cut out the other side, from your waist measure about 3.5 inches and connect. So this is what you'll be having also for the back pattern. Now moving over to the structured sleeve. So there are different ways of getting a structured sleeve, but recently this is like a new method, and the reason for this method is just so that you will have the design on the dress. Like, this will help you cut out your pattern and transfer the pattern on the fabric and trace out. The previous designs that you just go ahead to cut out your pattern, and then so after sewing you now go ahead to make adjustments to the structured sleeve. But for this one, it will help you so that you can trace out the exact shape you want for the pattern before going ahead to use the pattern to cut it out. So this one saves you some stress of maybe readjusting the sleeve, or it doesn't really look like what you want. So this one will give you the time to trace out and readjust to whatever pattern you want. So first you have to go ahead to place this on the dress that you're making. So I'm not actually sewing this dress, it's a pattern illustration. So let's take it that there's a dress on this mannequin. You're just going to place it on it, tape your pattern. So in some cases that the pattern paper is not relaxing, you can cut it off and tape it back again, or you can blend it off. So if you notice here, I blended this is because it was folding there. So it's either you cut it off and blend it out. So next you want to go ahead and draw out the shape you want. But when you're making this, you have to work with measurements and look at what you have. So just like I said, this is an illustration, and to make this, please, you'll have to put on the dress on the mannequin to enable you pin it on the dress directly. So if your mannequin is the same size with your body, you can just go ahead to use a pinnable mannequin. So after you're done pinning, you're going to trace out the shape that you want, and then you're going to also impute the measurement. So this is just like an illustration of how to do that, and you're going to make sure that the pattern paper you're using relaxes on the body of the mannequin or on the body of the dress very well. And you have to trace out the shape that you want, because any shape that you get here is what you'll be transferring to your main fabric, and then you're now going to go ahead to cut it to use it to create your structured sleeve. So this method helps you to get the exact shape, just like I mentioned earlier. So it's difficult for me to actually do it here because I'm just working with a plastic mannequin, and it's a bit difficult for me to use the tape to hold it down. So now at the back, you also trace out the shape that you want to create, and then you're going to cut it out. So now after tracing this, you're going to use it to cut out both the lining and the main fabric, and you're going to be adding your joining allowance both at the lower part, the upper part at the sides. Then on the lining part of the structure sleeve, you're going to iron a crinoline mesh and then add your sewable boning, or if you want to use a plastic boning, you create casing for it and go ahead to top stitch. So even if you want to create like a pleat or bend, you have to make sure that you do it exactly what you want before going ahead to remove it. So for the side part, to create this part also, you're going to actually place your pattern paper. So this is more like a new method. You can actually go ahead to just trace whatever you want on the paper and then transfer it to your fabric, but it won't give you the exact shape you want. This helps you to get whatever design you want before transferring it on your fabric and then going ahead to cut. This will also help you remove errors, like instead of doing adjustments on the structured sleeve, or if you don't like the effect you have there. So for this design, you have to actually go ahead to cut and join your paper, because this part is more like it has a standing effect. So my pattern paper did not cross to the back, but I'll just go ahead to add little to explain how to do that. So I'll just go ahead to trace this out, and while trying to bend the pattern paper, just be careful because it might tear or rip off because it's a paper actually. So now, just like I said, at this side you have to go ahead to join a pattern paper, because if you place it that way, it will be flat. It won't be giving that standing effect you have by the side. So now I'll just take another pattern paper and I will lift it up this way. So if you want your structure to be standing, you just go ahead to take it up this way first. But if you blend it down, that means your pattern will not be standing. So I'll just go ahead and add another pattern paper to it and then trace out the shape I want at this point. So you're going to go ahead to tape up this pattern together. So if you notice now, this side is standing. So this is what you're going to do, and you're going to now take out this tape, take out a pattern paper and place on your fabric. Then go ahead to cut out. You'll be cutting out 2 pieces, and just like I said, you're going to add a clean onion mesh to the lining part, add a boning, and to the main fabric you can iron an stay or a gum stay to it. Then you can go ahead to join it with 1/2 inch. So with this, we have come to the end of today's video.